This is episode 3 of This Is Not Advice, titled, Is Marriage Worth It? So, babe, we recently celebrated 9 years of marriage.
Whew. Yes, we have.
That's crazy. We almost at the 10-year mark. I think we 4 years past the average divorce rate in America. I think it's like 5 years.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like
so. I
5. Okay,
believe
yeah.
so.
Yeah, so we 4 years over
we
the
we
hump.
got over that hump. Yeah.
So let me ask you, did you think we would make it this far?
My honest answer, I don't know. Am I happy that we're here to tell our story, that we've made it for 9 years? Yes. Extremely happy. But did I know we were going to make it? My answer is going to be, I don't know. I mean, we've had our ebbs and flows. We've had our challenges, our ups, our downs, our peaks, our valleys over this course of 9 years. We've been through a lot. So, yeah, my answer remains, I don't know. What about you?
It's been an up and down journey emotionally. However, I did always feel like you were the one for me. There was a feeling that I had. There was a connection that I felt to you. And in some ways, I kind of feel like the pandemic might have played a huge part in keeping us together.
You wait, you think the pandemic played a huge role in keeping us together?
Yeah, I think the pandemic may have. I got a theory.
And what is that theory? Because I'd like to know.
So things slowed down, right? We had our daughter was turning 3 years old the year right when the pandemic hit, and we were in the house together, and we got to know each other in ways that maybe we would not have known each other had the pandemic not occurred. Now, the pandemic is a horrible event, you know what I'm saying, in terms of people losing their lives, loved ones, everything that happened. So I'm speaking from just our situation in the house. We spent a lot of time together, and before that, remember the days would look like this. We would wake up, shower, you'd go to work, I'd either drop you or you'd drive or take the train, and then I would drop Zariah off by Auntie Margaret and then go to work, and then by the time I finished, we both got home. It's like, what, 6, maybe 7 o'clock?
Yeah, 6,
Right.
7. Yep.
And then we getting ready for the next day. By the time we get home, and things are just moving so fast that I'm not saying we wouldn't have figured it out and we wouldn't have stayed together. However, the pandemic helped me really understand how quickly I was moving and maneuvering through life. And being in the house with you all day, it was actually, I don't know how you felt, but it's actually kind of fun. You know what I'm saying? You were cooking, right? You know, you used to cook when we first met. You started cooking more again. Now, no shade. You know what I'm saying?
wait.
And then we started
let's
making
back
the
up.
Douce
What-
Coladas while we were home, you know?
Why you talking about no shade? Let's back
Huh?
up. Why
I'm
are
saying
talking
when we
about-
first met, you know, you used to chef it up, cook and all
Right,
that.
so what
Then
you trying to say?
You were so busy that it was hard for you. I understand. It was hard.
I mean, I'll say the pandemic, yes, we got to spend a lot of time together. Yeah, it was fun. We had definitely had moments of fun, but for me, my experience, it was a little too much time together.
Oh,
It was just a little too much.
oh yeah, tell me more. What you mean?
Nah, just sometimes I need a little break. I need a little reset. I need to get out and be amongst other people, to keep it a little spicy at home, keep it a little mystery, I guess. Mysterious. Keep it a little mysterious. So I like the feeling of like missing you.
So no haircut Kareem wasn't sexy. That's what you're trying to say.
Oh, no.
Oh, because I couldn't get a haircut.
Wait,
I gotta learn
what?
how to cut my own hair, shape up. I was looking a little
Uh,
too cavemanish for you
I
in the
mean,
house.
I mean, we were all looking kind of cavemanish or woman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine.
All right.
Uh huh.
So
But
so
we
you
made it work. We made it work.
so I think that indicates that I was the one making most of the runs to Target and to get whatever we needed at the out the house, the supermarket. I was out and about. You know what I'm saying? It was open outside for me. I was putting in work.
Where? At
Huh?
Sam's Club?
We wasn't that well. That was later in the pandemic,
BJ's?
but yeah,
What?
BJ's, yeah, all of that. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay.
But the funny thing is that I realized that I could live life at a different pace during the pandemic because again, there wasn't much to do. And I got in touch with myself in ways that maybe I can't, again, I can't say I wouldn't have, but I know what did happen. And I started to develop a relationship with God. I became much more reflective. I took time out to read again in ways that I wasn't when I was just hopping on the train, right? Doing the whole day to day life thing in New York City, right? And when things slowed down, we even started to have conversations related to God and not necessarily religion, but what we're connected to in terms of a higher power in our lives, right? And three, well, we had our daughter 2017. She was going on 3 during the pandemic. Then Cairo was
Came
born like
like right
right
at the
before
beginning.
December
Yeah.
2019, right? And then he
And
was in
then
the
the world,
hospital for a week. That was really scary.
yeah. And
And
the
then
world shut down, what, March 2020,
yeah,
right?
like a month
Yeah.
after, right? So who knows? Maybe he had COVID. And just the being a father, I believe started to shift my perspective. I grew up questioning God, not being a believer in God, thinking that I had it figured out. And not to say I didn't eventually slowly start to recognize that there was a higher power, but before the pandemic, I was just moving. I was just like, I was in school. I was always doing something. And I'm still somebody who's always active in some capacity because that's just how I am. But I have learned to slow down in ways that I never did prior to the pandemic. Then we had our third son in
21.
2021, right? Our pandemic baby, right? So now we got 3 kids, but then also during that time span, you lost both of your parents.
Well, my dad passed away in 2018.
So between 2017 and 2022, we
Yeah,
had 3 children
correct.
and you lost both your
And I
parents.
lost both of my parents. Yeah.
How do you think that impacted you and us?
So I guess, since you were speaking to your relation with God, I'll speak to that first. So for me, I grew up in the church, right? I grew up traditional SDA. Shout out to my SDA fans and family and all of that.
My grandmother was SDA. I know a little something about SDA, but my grandmother, man, she's a beautiful, beautiful soul. I still feel her presence up until today. I'm sorry.
No worries. And if anyone knows traditional SDA, my experience of that, it was very restricting. It was very law based, right? And I'm not speaking to the religion. That's not necessarily how the religion is, but that was my experience as a child growing up in that faith. It just felt very restricted. I didn't feel like I can be me or show who I was as an individual because whomever I wanted to show myself as as an individual had to be confined to, I guess, these laws or rituals or these foundational basis of SDA. Like SDA was my identity. And so growing up in that faith, I never really felt connected to God on an individual basis for myself. To an extent, I felt like I was performative, right? I was just showing up and being whomever I thought being at SDA was supposed to look like and be like, and just followed these rules and regulations, and you'd go on about life. And then, so needless to say, when I got to college and stuff like that, I stepped away from the religion. I stepped away from all of that because it never felt like this is God, right? Like this cannot be how God moves and operate, and this is just not relationship. Period. There was no intimacy. There was no. I didn't feel like I knew how to speak to God or hear God or have a relation. Period. Um. So with the death of or the loss of my father in 2018, but we had Zariah in 2017. So my father, he battled cancer. He was always in and out of remission, and he battled it for 25 years. So although it was a loss, I feel in the 25 years of him being alive, I was able to grieve him. So the loss of him wasn't so what's the word I'm looking for, babe? I guess the loss,
It wasn't
like,
sudden. It was like you kind of anticipated it.
yeah, it wasn't sudden. I anticipated it. Although I was sad by his loss, I was still able to function, and I was still able to show up, and I was still able to, do my duties as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, as a friend, whatever roles, there are of Shannon, right? All the multifaceted or multi-layered roles of me, right? And then in the midst of that, like you said, we had Cairo, then the world shut down. But during that time span, my mother came down ill. So I was in a role where I had to be the caregiver for my mother. I was doing a lot of running up and down, even in a time when people couldn't even be in the hospitals. So like that was scary. My mom is in the hospital, but I'm being told I can't even come in to visit her. I just have to drop her off.
You were going from Brooklyn to
From
Mount
Brooklyn,
Vernon to
because
the Bronx.
right at the time we were
So
living
how
in
far is
Brooklyn.
that drive?
I mean, like what? Maybe an hour
Okay. Now just painting a picture for
tops.
people who may not be as familiar
Right.
with the geography of New York City.
And I'm what, further along in the pregnancy, like I'm like 6 7 months pregnant. So that also added stress to my pregnancy. I became a high risk. My pregnancy became high risk, right? So I am going through all of that, but I still have to show up for my mom. I still have to be her advocate. I have to speak to these doctors. I have to ensure that her care is top notch. When my experience is when family members don't have advocates, these medical professionals they'll treat them like they're just another person, another patient, as opposed to putting that person that
Like humanizing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah, that humanness to them, and treating them with the love and care and respect that a loved one would do for their person, right? And so I'm going through all of that, and then my mom passes away in 2021, and although she was sick, and we kind of knew it may happen or it may occur, that to me, her loss was a shock to my system, a huge shock.
And she was losing her limbs, right, slowly as time went on as well. So it was harder for her to care for herself
Correct.
at all, right?
Right. So, you know, her loss being a huge shock to me, I definitely was in a dark period of my life. So at this time, we have all three children, right? Because our last child was born in May of 2021, and then my mother passed away in October of 2021. So we have all three children. I'm trying to manage all three kids along with the loss of my mother, and I couldn't perform. I was, yeah, I was in a really bad depressive state. Just it was really difficult for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
Yeah. And thinking of us together as a couple, I know for me, there are times when I didn't completely I empathize and I understood, and I'm still learning, right? What your needs are and how those needs have changed, and understanding what it's like to be supportive of someone who is grappling with depression. It's not a simple formula. Like, I know they're going through it and I'm going to show it for them, right? Because I also have and had my own challenges and issues, right? Because we're human, right? We're all going through these emotional roller coasters in different ways. And I know that one of the things that I had to, and I'm still learning, like I said, to do is how can I show up for you in an emotionally in a way that helps you feel supported, that helps you feel loved, that helps you feel seen, because I know that you may not even understand completely how to express your emotions and how those feelings have impacted you as an individual. And I know that you've been going to the grief group through our church over this past year, and I never thought of this before, but I wonder if there are groups for people who are married to people who are grieving,
I
and
mean,
how we can learn more about and better understanding what you all may be going through. Because for me, my father
well,
passed away when I was very young, and I've never grieved that. Right? I never. It's like, is it too late for me to grieve that? I just really started thinking about him as a whole human a few years ago. I grew up with resentment, pain, but also a level of feeling like, look what I did without you in my life. But yet I love him more now because I have children and I understand life in a way where I empathize with all that he may have been going through and grappling with as a man, a black man in this world. But yeah, you were about to jump in. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say one thing I did learn in grief group is that grief is not just to you as a person, but it does affect everyone else that's in your life,
Right.
right? So, yes, I'm feeling the loss of my mom, but you as my partner, you're grieving or processing the grief not only of the loss of my mom, but the loss of the old me,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because I am now completely different than I was the person that you fell in love with initially,
Right.
wanted to do your forever and ever amen with, right? So there's grief not only of the person who is no longer here, but there's grief of the person who is very much alive and
Right.
in front of you,
Right.
but it's not the same person that you knew.
Right.
And in grief group, they do try to, I guess, hone in to the idea, I guess, that grief is not just an individualized process or thing, but is much more greater than just self, right? You have to take in everyone and everything that's around you, and not just, although it feels very isolated and very all about self, it really isn't, right? But let's go back to, because we were speaking on, I guess, the relationship of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, just to rehash, I grew up in the faith, but left the faith because the faith wasn't resonating with me as a person. Like, God didn't feel restrictive for me. I couldn't conceptualize a God that was restrictive because that was my experience of the faith-based religion that I left, right? But when my mom passed away, I found myself leaning in and depending more on God. I needed a higher power to help me through this process of the loss of my mom, because now I feel like an orphan. I have no parents. You know, although people are there in my life saying, they're here to provide me with the support needed or whatever, which I'm grateful and thankful for all loved ones who have checked in, chimed in, supported me through this journey. Although these individuals are very present, it doesn't take away the feeling of still feeling like you're an orphan. Right. So I no longer have my earthly parents here with me, but I needed my ultimate father to help me get through that pain. And grief is a lifelong journey. You will never, in my opinion, get over it. It's just a matter of how do you manage grief to make it work in your day-to-day life, right? I'm forever going to be grieving the loss of my parents, the loss of my old ways, the loss of myself, right? Like, I'm different. Like, even becoming a mother is a grief to myself prior to being a mother. It's a grief of the version of self prior to being married to you. Single Shannon is very different from married Shannon, right? So it's all of those things.
And then us with one child is different than us with two children.
Correct.
And there's a different version of us with three children.
Right.
Right. And we have to figure out how to navigate those rapid changes that are occurring all at once within that 5 year span. I mean, it still impacts us up until this day, but that 5 year span was like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
And then also in 2022, we moved down to Atlanta,
Yeah.
Stone Mountain to be exact. And that was another major
Change. Life change. Yep.
And I don't know if I ever seriously considered moving outside of Brooklyn.
I mean, you
right?
had a whole
Let's say Brooklyn is that, right?
You had a whole nonprofit.
Right, called Don't Leave New York City.
Don't leave
And you know,
NYC.
guys, listen, technically I didn't leave. Trust me, it's gonna come back full circle. And it kind of slowly has, right? Because when I moved, I had two different jobs, but I'll focus on the one that I love, which is We Do It for the Culture. I started out as a consultant, right, in a part-time type of role while I was doing another job full-time. Now I do that full-time, and we've actually worked with schools in the district that I grew up in. And I would have never thought when I was moving that this was the case. And that's a whole nother episode, our professional journeys. But the fact that I met a woman, Jamila Sams, who's an entrepreneur, and I've really begun to understand how this entire world is a place where my impact can be felt. And I've also learned what are the steps that are needed to have my impact spread across the world. And that leads me to when we moved, so much happened that we could never foresee, right? I was thinking, if anything, I'll go back to teaching in the classroom. That's where my heart will forever lie. And then I'll figure it out from there, right? Because in New York, I worked at the district level. Maybe I would have became an AP and then a principal. Who knows? But I would have been in some type of leadership role, right? At a high level. And when we moved, I thought, okay, I'm going to find a district and I'm going to work in that district and I'll figure out my path. But God had other plans for us. But at the time, I still wasn't grounded in faith, right? And I didn't have a relationship with Christ, right? And then you mentioned being SDA, right? And then it was around 2024 sometime, like early 24, 23 maybe. We were having a conversation with some people and they were talking about this SDA church that's not traditional SDA. They have this very progressive way of interacting with religion and Christ. And my ears started to perk up. I'm like, where's this place at? Because that sounds like the type of place for me. Because y'all be getting me tight sometimes with the way that y'all talk about. Well, not y'all, but you know, just people that are very quote unquote religious, right?
Yes.
My whole life, and again, this is another episode, I bump heads with those types of people because I'm like, well, how does this align to what's happening right now in the world, in my everyday life? And it doesn't feel tangible. Sometimes it feels very judgmental. Sometimes it feels like I cannot be a critical thinker in these spaces. And I met with rebuttals that are very generic and I'm not able to engage in conversation. But when we went to Revision Church, I really started to hear language that made sense to me, that was speaking about issues in today's society. It was not judgmental. It felt as if critical thinking was valued. And I started to gain an interest in learning more about Christianity, Christ, not white Christian nationalism, and not Christian supremacy, right? Just what a relationship with Christ is like. And that really began to transform my way of being. And it has had a huge impact on our marriage, I believe, as well, because we both enjoy not just going to church, but being active members in the church and actually working on a team to together, right?
Yeah.
Where we do work in the community. And it has been a opportunity for us to have conversations in ways that we had from time to time during the pandemic. Like we'd hop on the prayer line, right? We may watch it was very scattered, right?
Yeah.
And we still have a lot of growing to do. However, we've been in a small group. We've been in the book clubs at the church. We've been learning from older couples about their experiences, and their kids are older than our kids. And we've really been having an opportunity to informally be mentored in many ways
Yeah.
through being members of the church while still being able to feel like we are like God, we recognizing how God has always been present in our life.
Yep.
And we don't have to change who we are in order to feel that presence. It's more about like, let's reflect and recognize how God has guided you up until this point, and how can you now continue to evolve with consciously keeping God at the center. And it has carried over not just into our marriage, but into us as parents, into my professional space, right? Shout out to my brother Timothy Jones, Greg Lucas, Dr. Chris Emden, and people who speak about the role of spirituality and their belief systems, and in their cases specifically in Christ, and how that impacts their professional journeys. Because, man, like I've gone through a transformation over these past 3 to 4 years that I did not see coming. And then, and I know some of you may be thinking, well, what does your day to day look like, right? And I think I'm probably shooting around 50% when it comes to waking up early, doing some type of devotion, right? Me doing it together with Shannon, or if I'm away for work, we'll do it together. But my next step is getting out of my bed and standing up or moving, because sometimes I'm laying there in bed. Most of the time I'm laying there in bed. I am praying. I am reading something, but I'm still in like this trying to wake up mode. And I don't want y'all listening to think like I've got this all figured out and I'm this
Nope.
super disciplined prayer warrior. Although I do engage in prayer on a daily basis, I know the next step for me is actually like waking up and I think getting in some type of posture, right? Where I am out of the bed, right? But I'm getting there, y'all. But yeah, that, and that's a whole nother episode within itself, because as I'm speaking about it, there's just so many different lanes we could take this conversation. But I'll pause there, but thank God for being present. Well, for us, for recognizing God's active presence in our life.
So, going back to your original question, did I see us being married 9 years? Did I see us making it? So the answer is, I didn't see it, but God did.
Ooh, okay. Oh, all right. Tell me
Yeah.
more. What is you?
Because He's been working through us the entire time. And in accepting Him in His fullness, He is the one who's ordering our steps. He is the one who is putting everything that we can't foresee in our human lenses together. And He is who has brought us thus far, right? We're here not in our own strength, but in His. And we're here to fulfill His will and His purpose. And being with you for the past 9 years, I know it's nothing short of God ordained. Yeah.
I mean, listen, y'all, this is, again, these are deep topics that we're going to circle back to these and dive deeper, because there's like 10 more episodes within this episode. But I think we'll close out right there until episode 4.
How can you top that, right?
God,
But yeah,
yeah.
I think, well, I know this is God ordained. And I'm just excited to be along this journey with you. And I'm here to see what the next 9 years will bring, not only for myself, but for us as the unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the unit. All right. I love you, babe.
I love you too.
This is episode 3 of This Is Not Advice, titled, Is Marriage Worth It? Thank you. God bless. And we'll see y'all episode 4.
See ya.